Assalamualaikum. Today we are going to present the impact of the crisis on North Korea and South Korea during Cold War between East Asian region. Before we start, let me introduce my group members. The first presenter is me, and my name is Marta Kiptia binti Amizan. And second is Nur Irene binti Muhammad Latif. Third, Nini Iswani. Fourth, Nur Farah Nabila binti Hamidi. Fifth, Nurul Shafika binti Azhari. And the last one is Muhammad Fitri bin Mehad. The international order has undergone significant change since the end of the Cold War, as have the foreign policy of individual nations. In the meantime, the emergence of new coalitions in the global system has boosted the power of some Cold War era allies. The emergence of new key players with diverse regional and international interests who are powerful in the international system has exposed the global liberal order to a variety of old conflict. As a result of these events, China, by constructing artificial islands in the South China Sea and strengthening the Navy and Air Force, and also Navy in the Asia-Pacific region, it also threatening to annex Taiwan to the mainland North Korea by possessing nuclear weapon on the Korean peninsula. The Iran also by bolstering its navy in the Persian Gulf to developing missile programs. However, the United States security commitments continue to pose a threat to China's hegemony in the Asia-Pacific region. Iran's encroachment into the Middle East, as well as Russian growth into Central Asia and the European frontier. On June 25, 1950, North Korea launched an attack on South Korea, starting the Korean War. The early response of US leaders was dictated by Cold War presumptions, who quickly came to the conclusion that Soviet Premier Joseph Stalin had ordered this invasion as the first step in his strategy for global conquest. Furthermore, Truman was unable to recognize that the foundation of these conflicts went back at least to the commencement of World War II, when Korea was a colony of Japan. Because of this history lesson from the 1930s, after Korea was liberated in August 1945, the US and Soviet Union forbade the Korean people from making their own decisions, which resulted in divisions and a war that was inevitable. Before 1941, the United States had little stake in Korea's future and showed little interest in it. About 3.5 million people died in this wave. There are more people that died in this war rather than the Vietnam War. In 1954, there was a Geneva Conference, and at that time, the war was over, but no peace between North and South Korea. I think that's all from me. I will pass the presentation to the next presenter.
Okay, so let's move to the factors that contribute the separation of North and South Korea. The first factors that contribute to the separation of North and South Korea is the decline of ideological conflict that involving two major forces over influence, economy, and power. Due to many conflicts while under Japanese rule, the United States and the Soviet Union began to attack Korea to take over the reins of Japanese government, and at the same time, Japan lost and retreat. Union Soviet troops landed on North Korea, while United States troops were landed in South Korea. As a result, due to two great powers wanting to colonize one country, at the end the result was the division of two Korean regions without the involvement of the Korean side itself. The second factor is the divisions of Korea into two parts, as we know that there were no indications of the two regions coming together again after the World War II. This is due to their preference for dividing Korea to make the process of annexing new territory simpler. A leftist Korean fighter named Kim Gu and several left-wing political movements in nation established a provisional government for Korea based in Chongqing, China. Syngman Rhee, as the head of the new government, started to gain power by requesting that South Korea to become autonomous, but United States refused to grant the request because did not want the Soviet Union to annex the land. The third factor is the result of the United Nations General Assembly's resolution in December 1948. In that year, South Korean government was become a legitimately existing government on the Korean Peninsula. This decision makes North Korea more aggressive and fosters the animosity towards South Korea and the United States. Similarly, the United Nations does not give North Korea the same rights and power like South Korea. Nevertheless, Soviet Union continued to help North Korea militarily and ideologically so that they could restore the right similarly to South Korea. Next, I will pass to the next presenter. Thank you.
Realism or political realism is a school of thought that explains international relations in terms of power. The exercise of power by states toward each other is sometimes called realpolitik or just power politic. In addition, realists tend to treat political power as separate from and predominant over morality, ideology, and other social and economic aspects of life. For realists, ideologies do not matter much, nor do religions or other cultural factors with which states may justify their actions. Realists see states with very different religions, ideologies, or economic systems as quite similar in their action with regard to national power. The assumption of realism has been widely criticized for its weak foundation, ethical poverty, and overemphasis on such poorly defined concepts as power and national interest. In realism, people are greedy, insecure, and aggressive. They compete for power, which makes them attack one another to gain benefits. Realists explain that states will act to maximize their own self-interest even though they have to use force to gain power. Therefore, the selfishness of individuals is considered to be the cause of base for conflicts that emanate among individuals. Only the state, given its claim to sovereignty, possesses the monopoly of legitimate force to resolve conflicts between individuals and groups within its territory and also between itself and other states and international actors. In the context of the action of the anarchy, states coexist in a context of international anarchy, which refers to the absence of a centralized authority to protect states from one another. Each state has to survive on its own.
I will continue with the impact of North and South Korea Cold War. The current war had far-reaching political, social, and economic consequences for both North and South Korea. People in both countries are affected by the separation between North and South Korea. As a result, when the Cold War started, there were several impacts that were noticeable. Firstly, the impact of Cold War between North and South Korea is ideological and political differences. Ideology is a set of beliefs that underpins a political or social movement. The Democratic People's Republic of Korea symbolized North Korea with socialist and communist philosophy, while South Korea practiced democratic philosophy and applied capitalism principle in economic structure. Next, the economic gap between North and South Korea. South Korea economy was initially dependent on Japanese aid. South Korea was introduced first 5-year economic planning or economic development planning to overcome the economic issue, while economy in North Korea is improving as a result of solid administrative measures implemented during Japanese control. The economic and cultural agreement was signed, which Soviet Union committed to help economy of North Korea. In addition, differences in education system. North Korea education is government controlled and compulsory up to the first secondary level, where political component and basic subject. South Korea education emphasizes science, mathematics, and technology courses, and educational facilities are outfitted with high-speed internet access networks. Last but not least, establishment of non-aligned movement seeks to maintain global peace without siding with either the Western or Communist bloc. One of the foundations of NAM effort to avoid foreign involvement in a country affair and protect country sovereignty. This establishment can aid the peaceful resolution of international problems.
I think that's all from me. I will pass the presentation to the next presenter.
Hi, my name is Nafar Nabila and I'm going to talk about a lesson. So we can start with first lesson, which is North Korea is being invaded. Why? In 1950, the United States launched an assault to North Korea. This is because US soldiers want to help South Korea with this Cold War happen. North Korea had invaded and want to go to war with South Korea at that time. This tension occurs until it causes the intervention of major powers such as America and China. Here we see both sides trying to help South Korea and North Korea. But North Korea assaults represent a communist death of America's will. US leader witnessed few other options to intervene. Here are lessons we can be learned. North Korea does not want reconciliation and wants to continue the war, something that cannot be emulated. Second, because of this war, the Korean Peninsula has suffered harm, and the amount of harm is verified in research of the Institute report that figures is more than 2 millions of death. And the military of US and China is suffered the loss in this war too. Even in the sad story is majority of the victim was civilians, which is a rare tragedy in contemporary combat history. So we can see how big impact to our nation and people when the war happened to the country. It's just not we face that it will be to others countries too. Last, the truce ended in a battle Korea. As mentioned before, the conflict in Korea had far-reaching consequences for the countries involved. The bad impact has been as those countries' separation by contributing to the existing hatred between two Koreas. Not just in that, the lesson seen when the UN Security Council established the United National Command UNC and requested that Truman, which is America's leader at the time, nominate as UNC chief, and this is the chance from United States side to take in the Korean Peninsula matter to the UN. United States leader at that time recognized that belief that the UN provide the best chance for achievement and greatest safeguard against disaster.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today I will continue with recommendation that we can share with you. Is it divided into two? The first is multi-track diplomacy and the second is official peace agreement between countries. Alright, multi-track diplomacy is an effort that may help both sides to resolve the conflict through diplomacy. Multi-track is divided into 6 or 9 tracks such as government, professional conflict resolution, business, private citizen, research training and education, peace activism, religion, and also the last is funding. Each of the track is interconnected and play an important role because it can help the country develop rapidly in the future. Maybe some of people thinks it is necessary and some will be not, but if seen, it will be useful and help the country. Each track has its own characteristic that we can do or we can apply to our government or the crisis. Alright, second is official peace agreement. Why we need official agreement, right? When there is already have a ceasefire agreement. Alright, the previous agreement was a peaceful agreement. It's not the official agreement, and then it was only bound on the paper and could be changed at any time. Therefore, it needs an official peace agreement. It is because agreement or in this agreement is necessary to be more detailed and fair because it involves both Korea country, which is South Korea and North Korea. In addition, the involvement of the country representative is also necessary so that there is no frown, no bias in the future, and everything that is discussed must be monitored by Korean Peace Agency. The agreement has the addition of some rules such as sickness in the matters related, and some of other things was maintained, such as the demilitarized zone as a combat free zone, and then some of the army also need to move 2 or 4 kilometers from this zone. So I think that's all from me. I will pass the presentation to the next presenter.
I will continue with conclusion. China and North Korea were ready to restart the peace talks at the beginning of 1953, but the communists were preferred that the Americans take the initiative. This incident was happened on February 22 when the UNC proposed exchanging sick and injured captives after the Red Cross had made a similar suggestion. Stalin's successors urged the People's Republic of China, PRC, and the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, DPRK, to act on their desire for peace rather than discouraging them as he had done. China showed that it was not going to be intimidated by its rival by employing military might to force it to make concession on the final conditions. On July 27, 1953, an armistice put an end to the hostilities in Korea. The conflict has now come to be seen by Korean citizens as the second greatest tragedy in their recent history, behind Japanese colonial operation. Japan's economy was also given a boost by US military spending, which helped it become a major world power. Instead, while diplomatic tension and military conflicts along the demilitarized zone persisted throughout the 21st century, Koreans were forced to endure the living tragedy of yearning for reunification. The Korean War also profoundly altered the course of international events. For 20 years, US-China ties were poisoned, particularly after Washington convinced the United Nations to denounce the People's Republic of China, PRC, for aggression in Korea. Ironically, the battle enhanced the reputation of Mao's dictatorship in the region while aiding in the consolidation of his rule in China. They did this because they believed this was the main lesson from Korea. I think that's all for our presentation. Thank you.